Hey everyone, it's Ivan, keepagile.com, here to bring you another gear review, and today we're talking about optics. This guy right here, which is the Atibal Striiker 1-4. Taking a step back, how'd I end up with this guy? Ultimately, I was shooting some 3-gun, starting to have fun with it, and while I had an RMR on my pistol, shooting iron sights on my rifle. And I was like, you know what, I probably need to up my game. So started looking around, tons and tons of variable 1-2x optics out there. And you know what, I saw this guy, fairly low price point, and I was like, you know what, heard good things about the company, Atibal, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but Japanese made, good glass, willing to give it a try. Since I picked it up, been using it for probably about 4 or 5 months now. One of the things I like about the Optic is the reticle. It's centered on a 4 MOA dot, and while some people probably find that way too big, especially second focal plane, I actually like it. Makes for really quick shots, kind of in that medium to close range. And that's what it's about, right? Speed. I'm sure some people have reservations about that 4 MOA dot, especially on a second focal plane optic. Real quick, second versus first focal plane. On a second focal plane, as you adjust the magnification, the reticle stays the same. First focal plane, as you adjust the magnification, the reticle changes with it. So you always have a 4 MOA dot. Kind of big, right? It is, but what I find it does for me, especially kind of in this environment, is when the dot's there, you pull the trigger, versus trying to refine that sight picture too much. Granted, that's totally a thing in my head, but if I have this really fine, really fine dot, mentally, I have a hard time switching off of refining that sight picture and getting it right where it needs to be, as far as that perfect shot, versus having this fairly large dot, you just throw it, as soon as it's anywhere on the target, you break the shot and you're good to go. Of course, it begs the question, what about when you move past the 25, 50, 100 yards? Well, while this doesn't have like a big cattail sticking out, there is this little raised section. Find it pretty easy, grab it, crank this guy to 4, at which point you just get that dot on the target, break those shots. I don't find the 4 MOA dot to be a hindrance at those distances, and there's a built-in BDC, bullet drop compensator. Unlike a lot, there isn't a vertical stadia line. Personally, I really like this. Like, why would you want that? But the way it's set up is more or less at those distances, 200, 300, and so on, that width, as far as like a target, a human goes, right around 12 inches or so, it's basically gonna fill that bracket. So at 300, for example, put that in there. Basically, you have the target centered right in between those two horizontal lines. Pull the trigger, you're gonna hit. For whatever reason, you need to add windage. It's really easy to just slide over to the left or to the right, move that line over. Again, break your shot and you're gonna be on. What don't I like about this optic? Ironically, the reticle. What do I mean? It's pretty much a one-trick pony. It does really good in kind of that 3-gun realm. You just need to get around on the target, especially shooting steel. Boom, hit, great. But anything outside of that, I find it to be kind of lacking. So on Atibal's website, they actually list it for 3-gun as well as hunting. And you know what? I actually took a deer with it this year, but didn't really care for it because again, I couldn't refine that sight picture as much as I would have liked to before I broke my shot. Did I hit my deer? Absolutely. Made it fall down forever. But I would have rather been able to just kind of refine my sight picture more. That's just me, personal experience, personal use. While this doesn't have a real exaggerated throw lever or cattail, it does have this raised section, which is really easy to grab, whether you have gloves on or not, and aggressive enough to where you can get it, manipulate it, but not so much so that it's gonna get caught on stuff. Another feature that's pretty nice is these turrets. You actually just pull them out, and when you adjust it, there's actually an audible click in between each one. You can feel it, you can hear it. And then when you're done making your adjustments, you can just shove them back in and they're locked. In addition to that, if you want, you can zero them out. You actually remove this piece once you get it zeroed, find the zero here, put it back on, tighten it down, and now your turrets are zeroed should you actually put any dope on it while you're out shooting. Dimensions wise, just over 11 inches long, little over 19 ounces, 30 millimeter tube, 24 millimeter objective lens, and right here on the left side of the scope, we can actually adjust the intensity of our reticle. It is illuminated red. And with this, right here is also your battery compartment. You can get to it with a screwdriver, flathead, pretty much anything, piece of brass, coin, whatever you want. And then when it comes to turning this on, you can either turn it up or you can turn it down. It doesn't have off in between each of the 11 settings, but what is nice is when you have this off at 0, you can either turn it down and it'll be on 1, your dimmest setting, or you can turn it up to 11 and it'll be on your brightest. While it isn't as convenient as having an off in between each one, it is nice to just be able to go, hey, I want max illumination, rather than clicking through every single setting to get to 11. One thing that has impressed me with this optic is actually the clarity. In low light, whether it's early morning, late in the evening, or just really overcast day, some really good light transmission through this. Things are really clear. To that end, multi-coated lenses, all that stuff. One thing I will say with respect to the illuminated reticle, is it daylight bright? Yes, as long as your day isn't very bright. It's not, you can't crank this thing up like a fireball to where you're, if in a really bright environment, desert, anything like that, you can still see it. It's not daylight bright, but it's fairly bright. Having said that, the etched reticle, especially at 4 MOA dot, I find it usually does a really good job for what I'm looking for. As far as the rest of it, T6160 aluminum body, aircraft grade, blah, 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 shockproof, waterproof, fogproof, all that stuff. And Atibal actually does have a lifetime warranty. I can't speak to it because I've never used it, but they do have one. While admittedly, I do feel this is a one-trick pony with respect to 3-gun. I think there's a lot of value here in that 1:4 variable power optic, great reticle for 3-gun, and pretty awesome price point. You can pick this guy up through Atibal, about 220 bucks, or go to Rainier Arms. You can find this usually somewhere south of 190, like 187, something along those lines. And to that end, especially if you're just looking at getting into 3-gun, I think it's a great optic, go a long way for you before you, 1, decide you don't like 3-gun, or 2, decide you need to upgrade from this really good entry level 1:4. As always, thanks for joining us at kitbadger.com. Look forward to seeing you next time.